العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. صدق الله العظيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. وبعد. Jazakumullah khair for everyone coming today for this seminar, inshallah. As you can see, it's a bit more than just a talk. It's actually something we have thought to deliver in a traditional lesson format where people can take some notes and inshallah benefit on a practical level as opposed to just listen to a speech and move on. Inshallah, the format is going to be very straightforward. Ustaz Abraz is going to deliver a talk, and then that talk will be followed by a question and answer session. And inshallah, whoever feels whatever question you have in your mind, inshallah, you'll be feel free to ask that question verbally, inshallah. On the sister side, if they have any questions that they'd like to make, inshallah, you can write the questions down and then hand them in, and we'll ask those questions on your behalf. Many of you would probably be aware that this type of topic, which is a bid'ah, it's a topic which is very rife. Many people are talking about it, and many of those people who have spoken who haven't really given us a true definition of what bid'ah really is. There are certain people, certain groups that only have a very limited vocabulary, and the concepts such as bid'ah, kufr, shirk, or these are prominent usage of these words without actually knowing what the meaning really is behind any of these. Therefore, whenever confusion or misconceptions take place, it is the job of those that know in order to elaborate these and clarify these. And alhamdulillah, this is a good opportunity for us in order to clear the conception of what bid'ah really is, because it does affect in each and every one of us. When people use this concept of bid'ah very loosely, it affects each and every one of us. And we know of families where people have called their parents bid'atis, that these people performing bid'ah, people calling their sisters and brothers kafirs, people calling each other mushriks. So these are very, very important, and there's a lot of hostility within families that is occurring because of the conception or the misconception that people have with regards to these terms and the definitions, what they have from the Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Inshallah, this is our aim, inshallah, to clarify this and also address those people who are using these terms very loosely to reconsider before they actually discuss this concept of bid'ah, before they use any words. A lot of the things people say or the statements that they make, they are used without any thought process going behind. Calling someone a mubtadi is a great criminal offense within Islam, to call someone a mubtadi when they are not. To call someone a mushrik without knowing the definition of shirk is a great criminal act within Islam. And to call someone a kafir without knowing what necessitates kufr, either the person you have called is a kafir or that kufr returns on the person who has said kafir. So these are very, very serious terms, but unfortunately they are used very commonly. So it is the job of those people that have studied, that have known, in order to clear these conceptions. A lot of these definitions that are going around very loosely, they are based on very shallow information. They are based on illogical logic. And this is often appealing for the layman. And they get very attracted by these terms and definitions, and then they continue to use these words without any thought or feelings. We've had people that have torn the posters down that we would put up in order to advertise this concept. As Muslims, we believe that we should be able to express the opinion of the Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So those people, they should either come and get involved in discussion or dialogue so that we can solve these issues. We've had issues with those people who became very emotional. They said, you are creating differences amongst the ummah. Right? This isn't a difference. This is about telling people or educating people who and what Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah believe on with regards to bid'ah. We shouldn't be based on emotions, because this is the stem that starts from here and then it continues. When issues happen like 9/11 or 7/7, then people really question themselves and their identities and who they really are and where they should be getting their information from. So rather than to wait for another 7/7 to happen, we need to understand who we are, what our belief structure is, what our aqeedah is, what definitions do we take from these terms, when should we apply them, and who should we apply them to. Because unity can only occur under the Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. We cannot have unity with people that have anthropomorphic beliefs, for example. We do not have unity with people that attribute ugly attributes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We cannot create unity with people that attribute ugliness to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the companions, to the Ahl Bayt of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it is important that we as Muslims learn through traditional sources that go back all the way to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, understand these concepts and be able to apply them in our daily lives. We are trying to create reconciliation amongst the ummah by giving us the definition. We do not want to call people mushrik. We do not want to call people mubtadi unless they fulfill the criteria which falls under these categories. This is our job, inshallah. This is what we, each and every one of us, know, so that people don't accuse each other of being mushriks. People don't accuse each other of being mubtadi. And inshallah, by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, today in this seminar from Qur'an and from the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the pious predecessors, will be able to give you a definition that inshallah ta'ala will make or answer the questions that you have in your life. A lot of the traditions that we do, is it a bidah? Inshallah, those are the questions that will be answered. If you do not have paper or pen, please feel free to ask for one. Ask for one, inshallah, we'll try and provide pens and papers. Take as much notes as you possibly can. Write the questions that you have, inshallah. Whatever question you have, inshallah, we'll be able to give you an answer for it at the end of the seminar, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Before I pass the mic on, inshallah, Ustaz Ibrahim is one of the students of sacred knowledge who has studied for 6 years in Yemen, 3 years in Tarim, and also 3 years in a blessed place called Zabid, where the Ahnaf are, mashallah, still alive and still active and doing the work of dawah and teaching in the madaris in Zabid, inshallah. So without further ado, inshallah, I'll pass the mic on to Ustaz Ibrahim, inshallah.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وقرة أعيننا وعظيمنا ووسيلتنا إلى ربنا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته الكرام حماة الدين وعلينا معهم وفيهم يا رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Before we enter into our topic, I should mention something that subhanallah, we should all know. It is from the shi'ar of Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. It is from the signs of Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah that when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is mentioned, that we say sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it is unfortunate that we are not hearing people say sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In a sahih hadith narrated about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it is mentioned that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, أولى الناس بي يوم القيامة أكثرهم علي صلاة. That those people who will be closest to me on the day of judgment, they are the ones who send the most salat, the most salutations and salam upon me. So we should be from amongst them, insha'Allah, and we should raise our voices every time we hear the name of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Indeed, this is a distinguishing sign of the Ahlus Sunnah throughout the ages, and in particular in our time. The Prophet ﷺ is mentioned in a hadith as saying, يحمل هذا العلم عن كل خلف عدوله ينفون عنه تأويل الجاهلين وتحريف الغالين وانتحال المبطلين. But the Prophet ﷺ is narrated as saying in a hadith which is Hasan, that the Prophet ﷺ is narrated as saying that this knowledge will be carried in every generation, in every successive generation, by groups of people who are udul, who are upright, and they will clarify from this religion, and they will clarify from this knowledge and defend this knowledge from what? From the schisms of those who take pathways which are incorrect, from the ta'wil, the false interpretations of those who are ignorant, from the jahilin, and also from those interpretations of those people, or the corruptions of the corruptions of those people who take towards corrupting the texts and turning them away from their meanings. This hadith makes it clear to us that we should be very careful about where we take our knowledge from. Al-Imam Muslim rahmatullah alayhi in the Muqaddimah of Sahih Muslim mentions a number of narrations reported from the Salaf. And it's important that we know who the Salaf are. they are considered by the ulama of this religion as the first 3 generations generally of this ummah. The first generation being the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. The second being the tabi'un, who are the followers of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. Then we have the atba'u tabi'in, they are the followers of the Sahaba. It is mentioned in a hadith by the Prophet ﷺ, خَيْرُ النَّاسِ قَرْنِي ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ. The best of people are my generation, then those who follow them, then those who follow them. These are the Salaf. It is narrated regarding them inside the Muqaddimah, what we call the prologue of Sahih Muslim, of the Sharh of Sahih Muslim by Al-Imam Muslim rahmatullah alayhi. He says that one of the Salaf, who is known as Muhammad ibn Sirin rahmatullah alayhi, one of the Imams of the early generations, he said, "Inna hadha al-ilma deenun fanzuru amman ta'khuduna deenakum." Verily this knowledge is religion, therefore be careful from whom you take your religion. Then he narrates a narration from Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mubarak rahmatullah alayhi, who was one of the students of Sayyidina al-Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi. It's important to mention that Sayyidina al-Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi is from the tabi'een. He is from the students, from the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, meaning the students of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mubarak rahmatullah, a student of Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, is reported as having said, verily this religion, if it were not for the isnad, then anybody would say what they wished inside this religion. Lawla al-isnadu, were it not for isnad, were it not for the chain of transmission, and isnad is known as the chain of transmission, lawla al-isnadu laqala man sha'a ma sha'a. If it were not for the chain of transmission, whoever wanted to say whatever they wanted in the religion could do it. But because we have isnad, we have chain of transmission, people have to stop at their limits. Meaning that religion is not taken from your own understanding, nor is it taken from your own reading. Rather, it is taken from the afwah of the rijal. It is taken from the lips of the men. What do we mean by that? We mean that each successive generation learns from the previous generation in a continuous chain back to Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Therefore, preserving the correct understandings and maintaining the understandings of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah in every generation. So therefore, when we want to define today's concept, which is bid'ah, we need to go back and look, what did the Salaf say regarding bid'ah? What did the Salaf as-Salihun, the early generation, the pious ones from the early generation, what did they say regarding the concept of bid'ah? Because it is not enough to say, I say this, I think bid'ah means this, Fulan says bid'ah means this. What did the scholars of this deen say regarding the concept of bid'ah? That is why the first place and port of call today is going to be the qawl of the Salaf regarding bid'ah. And we are turning to one of the greatest of the Salaf, a great man from amongst the men of the early generations, Al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi. Who is Al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi? He is that man which the ulama have called Nasir al-Sunnah, the one who defended the prophetic Sunnah. We are going to go to his words and see what he said regarding the concept of bid'ah. This person who was called Nasir al-Sunnah, the one who gave victory and supported the Sunnah and defended the Sunnah, what did he say regarding this concept? Al-Imam al-Shafi'i, as we know, is one of the 4 great ai*immah of the 4 canonical schools of fiqh, the madahib al-arba'ah. We know Sayyidina Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, Sayyidina al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi, Sayyidina al-Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi, Sayyidina Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullah alayhi. These 4 represent, and their corpus of fiqh represents what we call Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah today. That Sayyidina al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi was a mujtahid, one capable of deriving the legal rules from their texts. He was a master in the science of the Arabic language. So what did he say regarding bid'ah? This takes us to our first slide. What did Sayyidina al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi say regarding bid'ah? It is reported in an authentic narration by Al-Hafidh Abu Nu'aym al-Asfahani rahmatullah alayhi, one of the scholars of hadith from the early generations, in his chain of narration that he relates inside Hilyatul Awliya, one of his books. he says that Al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi is reported as having said, Al-bid'atu bid'atani. Bid'ah is of two types. Al-bid'atu bid'atani. This is not my words. This is not the words of someone on the streets. These are the words of Al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi. Al-bid'atu bid'atani. Bid'atun mahmudatun wa bid'atun madhmumah. فما وافق السنة فهو محمود وما خالف السنة فهو مذموم واحتج بقول عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله تعالى عنه في قيام رمضان نعمة البدعة هي. He says innovation is of two types. Of how many types? Two. He says innovation is praiseworthy innovation and blameworthy innovation. And then he lays a premise for deciding whether an innovation is blameworthy or whether it is praiseworthy. He says that which is muwafiq to the sunnah, agrees with the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, but it is an innovative thing, then that thing is praiseworthy. However, if an innovative thing goes against the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, then it is reprehensible. It is something which is madhmoom, blameworthy in the Sharia. So here he clearly laid down a premise for deciding whether a new thing, an innovation, whether it would be good or bad. And he clearly saw that bid'ah was subdivided into two parts, praiseworthy and blameworthy. Where did he gain this understanding from? The narrator from Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi, one of his students, he says that Sayyidina al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi used as evidence the statement of Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, which is reported in the Sahih of Al-Imam Bukhari, the statement regarding the night prayer in Ramadan. That Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu said, Ni'matil bid'atu hiya. And in some narrations it is related, he said, Ni'matil bid'atu hadihi. If we look at this concept, then we are taking the understanding here of Al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi, who has based it upon the qawl of Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, which is reported authentically in Sahih al-Bukhari. And we know the reality that in the early part of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the early aspect of the issue of the night prayer of Ramadan, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came out and used to pray in the masjid certain number of days. Some of the ulama mentioned 3 and 4. That he used to come out, and because the people saw the Prophet ﷺ, they would gather behind him until he gained a congregation. Without the Prophet ﷺ commanding or telling anyone to congregate, they themselves of their own accord, some people would congregate behind him. When the Prophet ﷺ saw this, on the 3rd or the 4th night, he did not come to the masjid to pray the night prayer in Ramadan. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that he feared that the night prayer would become an obligation on his ummah, and out of his rahmah for his ummah, out of his compassion for the ummah, he stopped coming to the masjid, feeling that people would join behind him, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would make it obligatory upon his ummah. We see that later on in the life of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that the same scenario continued, meaning people would pray individually, some of them in the masjid, some of them would pray in groups inside the masjid, some of them would pray at home. Meaning, because the Prophet ﷺ stopped praying within the masjid and a congregation didn't form behind him, nor did he order anyone to congregate, nor did he tell them to pray behind a specific imam, the people continued during the time of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, praying individually, in groups, or at home. Until we come to the time of Sayyidina Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, where he saw the people praying in this manner inside the mosque one day, and they were in different groups, praying behind different imams, some of them praying individually, and then obviously people praying within their homes. So he decided to gather them behind one imam. And that imam was Sayyidina Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu ta'ala anhu, one of the Sahaba. And he commanded the people to gather behind this person. And he gathered them, and he made them pray 20 rak'ah. And that is what Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah are praying until this day. 20 rak'ah of the Taraweeh prayer. He said regarding this, when he had gathered them, and he came the next day and he saw all the people behind one imam gathered, praying, he said, Ni'matil bid'atu hadi. what a great bid'ah this is. If anybody knows Arabic, they will know that ni'mah is from af'alul madh. Af'alul madh. Those verbs which are used to praise something. Ni'matil bid'atu here. Or ni'matil bid'atu hadihi. What a most excellent innovation, or what a good innovation it is. And we will come back to this narration later on in this discussion, inshallah. This is the first statement from Al-Imam al-Shafi'i wa rahmatullah alayhi. Before we move to the next statement, let us recap. Al-Imam al-Shafi'i wa rahmatullah alayhi is saying there are two types of bid'ah. Al-Imam al-Shafi'i is from the Salaf. He has taken his understanding from the hadith of Sahih Bukhari, from the statement of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu has said regarding the night prayer of Ramadan, in specifically gathering people behind one imam and putting them in this format and calling people to gather behind one imam and putting a limit of 20 raka'ah upon it, that this is a good innovation. Let us move to the next slide, inshaAllah. The next statement of Sayyidina al-Imam al-Shafi'i wa rahmatullah alayhi is similar to the first, narrated by al-Imam al-Bayhaqi wa rahmatullah alayhi with a sahih isnad inside Manaqib of al-Imam al-Shafi'i, a book on the good character, or the life of al-Imam al-Shafi'i, covering his good character and different aspects of his life. Sayyidina al-Imam Shafi'i wa rahmatullah alayhi is reported as having said, al-muhdathatu min al-umuri darban. The innovated matters within the affairs of two types, darban, two types. أحدهما ما أحدث يخالف كتابا أو سنة أو أثرا أو إجماعا. The first is that which has been initiated or invented, and it goes against a matter within the kitab of Allah, or goes against a matter within the sunnah of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, say Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, or goes against an athar, a narration, or goes against an ijma'. What do we mean by narration? Generally the ulama use the word athar, some of them, to mean a statement of one of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What is ijma'? It is a consensus developed amongst the mujtahid imams. Who are the mujtahid imams? Those who have reached the pinnacle of Islamic sciences, able to derive a verdict from the legal texts. That their consensus. If something is invented going against one of these principles of the Sharia, then what does Imam al-Shafi'i wa rahmatullah alayhi say regarding it? فَهَذِهِ الْبِدْعَةُ الضَّلَالَةُ. Then this bid'ah is a bid'ah of misguidance. This is the belief of Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. If there is something invented going against these principles of the Sharia, then to us it is a bid'ah which is dalala. It is a misguidance. We don't want anything to do with it. Sayyidina al-Imam al-Shafi'i then gives the second type. He says, مَا أُحْدِثَ مِنَ الْخَيْرِ لَا خِلَافَ فِيهِ لِوَاحِدٍ مِنْ هَذَا. He said, it is that thing which is invented and it is from the good things. And it does not go against any of the four principles that we have mentioned earlier. The Qur'an, or a matter from the hadith, or athar from the aqwaal of the Sahaba statements, or something which is going against consensus. He says, this type of thing, فَهَذِهِ مُحْدَثَةٌ غَيْرُ مَضْمُومَةٌ. Then this is an innovative thing which is not reprehensible, which is not blameworthy, غَيْرُ مَضْمُومَةٌ, meaning it was invented and it did not go against any of the principles that we have mentioned of the Sharia. Then he says, Al-Imam al-Shafi'i wa rahmatullah alayhi, وَقَدْ قَالَ عُمَرُ بْنُ الْخَطَّابِ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى عَنْهُ فِي قِيَامِ رَمَضَانَ نِعْمَةِ الْبِدْعَةُ هَذِهِ. Going back to the same narration we mentioned earlier in Sahih al-Bukhari, that Sayyidina al-Imam al-Shafi'i wa rahmatullah alayhi is using this as his primary evidence for the classification of bid'ah into two types. He is saying that Sayyidina Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu said regarding the formation of this prayer by putting people behind one imam, gathering them, and then stipulating 20 raka'ats for the prayer, this is all a good innovation, as according to the wordings of one of the Sahaba of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it is not acceptable for us to think that one of the Sahaba of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say a thing which contradicts the Sharia. And here we see what he says after this. He says, يعني أنها محدثة لم تكن, meaning that the Qiyam of Ramadan in the way that Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu arranged it, meaning the standing in Ramadan, the night prayer of Ramadan, in the way and the format in which Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu did it, it had not existed before. This is the wording of Sayyidina Imam Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi. He says, يعني أنها محدثة لم تكن. It is an innovated affair that did not exist before. إذا كانت فليس فيها رد لما مضى. He says, and even if it is an issue which is innovated, and didn't exist before, there is nothing in it which contradicts what we have just mentioned. Meaning nothing in it which contradicts the Qur'an, nor the Sunnah, nor the Ijma', nor the Athar of a companion. Meaning the Taraweeh prayer as we know it today, nothing within it contradicts any of the principles of the Sharia. That is why it is an innovative thing, but it does not contradict any of the principles of the Sharia. Now, before we move to the next slide, I told you it is not conceivable for a sane person to think that Sayyidina Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu would say something which contradicts the Sharia of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Let us go to the next slide. The next slide is of a website that has been put up in this town, and leaflets have been distributed based upon this site. This site claims that it is refuting al-bid'atul hasana, the concept we are talking about today, the concept of that innovation which is not blameworthy, غير مذمومة, according to the words of Al-Imam Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi, al-bid'atul hasanatu, according to the words of other of the A'immah which we will mention. In this site there is a statement that we should all be worried about. If we go to the next slide, please. Here within the box we have highlighted this statement, and we have done our duty by informing those who have put the site up that this is a very dangerous statement they have put up. And until this day, they have not responded to our question regarding the statement. I will read the statement out to you. The other example that people use is the saying of Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. They do not say Sayyiduna, but we say Sayyiduna. He is our leader, Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Then they abbreviate radiallahu ta'ala anhu, another thing which we have discussed with them, and we have sent over the email something clarifying this concept, that the ulama have written it is not from respect, and this is something we should all take into account, to abbreviate sallallahu alayhi wasallam, to abbreviate subhanahu wa ta'ala, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, rahimahullah ta'ala. We should not abbreviate it neither in the Arabic nor in the English. Neither should we write Sad for sallallahu alayhi wasallam, neither should we write SWT, neither SAW, neither RH, RA, all of these things. We should not do it. The Salaf did not do it. Talk about bid'ah. The people talk about bid'ah. The Salaf did not abbreviate these things. Why? Because they are dua. And in the dua, if you want to get the full effect of the dua, you must read it all. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Some of the ulama have written regarding this in their books. In the Hashia of Ibn Abidin, rahmatullah alayhi, which is one of the great books of the Hanafi madhab, it is mentioned this is a sign of bukhl, a sign of being niggardly and miserly, that when you mention the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's name, you abbreviate. It is narrated that some of the ulama mentioned that the first person to innovate this had his hand cut off. So we should not go into these abbreviations. We should not make these abbreviations. We should write in full, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He says the other example that people use is the saying of Sayyiduna Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. What a good bidah this is, puts in brackets Bukhari. He says, this saying is not sound. As Umar, Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu ta'ala would never contradict what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. We have already said that. He would not. But he has said, this saying is not sound. He says after that, but for argument's sake, let us say it is authentic. What a most dangerous statement is being made here. Sahih al-Bukhari, one of the mother books of US-SUNNAH wal JAMAAH. It is related regarding it in the books of Mustalah. A child who has read the books of Mustalah, one or two books inside them, a young child who is learning the deen, if he reads the books of Mustalah or the books of Usul al-Hadith, the principles of Hadith, how should Hadith be understood, what is a Hadith terminology, it is mentioned clearly inside there that there is a consensus ijma' of the ulama of US-SUNNAH wal JAMAAH that every Hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari and Hadith inside Sahih Muslim is Sahih. This is what the general populace should take and understand. The Ammi, the person who has not studied the religion, he should understand that Sahih al-Muslim and Sahih al-Bukhari is all authentic, no doubts. If we begin to entertain these type of discussions, firstly they go against the consensus of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. For you to say this saying is not sound, for argument's sake, let us say it is authentic. Are you questioning a Sahih al-Bukhari? Are you questioning the sanad of this hadith? Who are you? There is ijma' upon this. And similarly, if you open this, you are opening the doorway to many people of innovation like the Shia, the extreme Shia who say the Sahih al-Bukhari is all of it not relevant, that it is all weak. The Sahih Muslim is not relevant, all of it is weak. If you open the doors to this, we are opening the doors to the destruction of the religion. So be careful of these statements and be careful whom you take your religion from. We do not say this hadith is weak, nor that it is unsound, nor that let us say for argument's sake it is authentic. Rather it is authentic, it is in Sahih al-Bukhari, and there is ijma', a consensus, that what is inside Sahih al-Bukhari and Muslim is authentic. Inshallah, if we move to the next point. So we said that Sayyidina al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi, in the early generations, in the time of the Salaf, laid down the meaning of bid'ah. We then see how Islam has been transmitted to us generation by generation by men who carried this religion, men who understood the religion, studied it, spent their lives, expended the entire time and life inside carrying this religion, that in every generation we find this same definition is being passed to us. We find from amongst the Khalaf. Who are the Khalaf? The Salaf are the predecessors, the Khalaf are the ones who succeed, the successors to the predecessors. Those ulama who come after the early three generations but follow the same methodology of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah as the early generations. We have the commentator of Sahih al-Bukhari, Al-Hafidh Badruddin al-Ayni rahmatullah alayhi. He's one of the Imams of Hadith and one of the teachers of Al-Hafidh Ibn Hajar rahmatullah alayhi. Al-Hafidh Ibn Hajar even had his own commentary on Sahih al-Bukhari. These are both commentators of Sahih al-Bukhari. What does he say regarding the concept of bid'ah? He says, وَالْبِدْعَةُ فِي الْأَصْلِ إِحْدَاثُ أَمْرٍ لَمْ يَكُنْ فِي زَمْنِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. Innovation, its root meaning is the innovating of an affair which did not exist at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. ثُمَّ الْبِدْعَةُ عَلَى نَوْعَيْنِ. Then bid'ah is of two types. Same thing which Al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi said. Al-Hafidh Badruddin al-Ayni rahmatullah alayhi, he is saying what? That bid'ah again is of two types. إن كانت مما تندرج تحت مستحسن في الشرع فهي بدعة حسنة وإن كانت مما تندرج تحت مستقبح في الشرع فهي بدعة مستقبحة. He is saying, similar to Al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi, we look at this type of bid'ah. Does it fall under a principle within the Sharia which is good? Or does it fall under a principle or thing within the Sharia which is bad? If it falls under something within the Sharia which already exists within the Sharia principle which is good, then we consider this innovation as a good innovation. Bid'atun, and he used the word bid'atun hasanatun here, whereas Imam al-Shafi'i mentioned bid'atun ghayru madmumah, that a bid'ah which is not reprehensible or not censured. So here he mentions that bid'ah is of two types, just like Al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi. So we see how the same concept is being carried on in the later generations by the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The bid'ah is of two types. There is reprehensible innovation, and when it is reprehensible, the Ahl Sunnah say it is reprehensible, we want nothing to do with it. But when it is falling under a principle of the Sharia which is good, and the ulama say then that this is a good thing, then we consider it as good. And we must remember here an important thing. Doesn't mean the layman thinks it's good. The layman thinks it's bad. No. The layman doesn't have the ability to distinguish that. Who has the ability? It is the al-a'imma al-mujtahidun, the great scholars of this religion. They have the ability to decide whether the thing falls under a good principle or a bad principle. So here we're not saying anyone can now decide this is a good bid'ah and this is a bad bid'ah. No. We are taking our religion from who? From the A'immah who understood the Qur'an and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we move then to the next slide, we have a statement here from Al-Allama Sa'aduddin al-Taftazani rahmatullah alayhi, one of the great scholars of Aqaid of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. In one of his books, the Sharh al-Maqasid, he mentions the following statement in which he rebukes, he censures those people who say that all innovation is misguidance. And this statement is very important for us because it will shed light on something that will be discussed later on. He says, وَلَا يَعْرِفُونَ أَنَّ الْبِدْعَةَ الْمَذْمُومَةَ هُوَ الْمُحْدَثُ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ غَيْرِ أَنْ يَكُونَ فِي أَحْدِ الصَّحَابَةِ وَالتَّابِعِينَ وَلَا دَلَّ عَلَيْهِ الدَّلِيلُ الشَّرْعِيُّ. He says, and they do not know that the blameworthy innovation is that innovated affair in the religion which did not exist in the era of the Sahaba and the successors and has no evidence supporting it from the Sharia. Meaning he's saying those people who say that all bid'ah is dalalah, they have not understood. Because yes, that innovation is misguidance which did not occur in the early generations and then was brought about and has no evidence supporting it from the Sharia. And we have already seen from the statement of Al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi and the statement of Al-Hafidh Badruddin al-Aini rahmatullah alayhi, that they said that if an invented thing could be taken under a principle already established within the Sharia and did not contradict any of the principles of the Sharia, then it could be considered as something good. Meaning those people who say that all bid'ah is dalala, misguidance, they have misunderstood the fact that if something is innovated and falls under a principle within the Sharia and does not contradict any of the principles of the Sharia, then it can be considered good. He further elaborates. He says, and from the ignorant people. So in the Arabic he says, وَمِنَ الْجَهْلَةِ مَنْ يَجْعَلُ كُلَّ أَمْرٍ لَمْ يَكُنْ فِي زَمَنِ الصَّحَابَةِ بِدْعَةً مَضْمُومَةً. He says, and there are some people from the ignorant people who make every affair that did not occur in the time of the Sahaba, they make it into a bid'ah which is reprehensible, which is censured, which is not good, which is blameworthy. He says regarding them, even if وَإِن لَمْ يُقَمْ دَلِيلٌ عَلَى قُبْحِهِ تَمَسُّكًا بِقَوْلِهِ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ إِيَّاكُمْ وَمُحْدَثَاتِ الْأُمُورِ. He says, even if there is no dalil established upon its ugliness or reprehensibility, they make it bid'ah by just saying it exists new, didn't exist at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, therefore it's bid'ah, every bid'ah is dalalah, and they go no further than that. He says they do this even if there is no evidence showing the ugliness or the reprehensibility of this act. Why? Because they hold on to the outward meaning of the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, إِيَّاكُمْ وَمُحْدَثَاتِ الْأُمُورِ فَإِنَّ كُلَّ مُحْدَثَةٍ بِدْعَةٍ وَكُلُّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ. That the Prophet ﷺ, and it is an authentic narration, sahih, that the Prophet ﷺ said, beware of the innovated affairs, because every innovated affair is misguidance. Every innovated affair is misguidance, and we will come and discuss this hadith in detail very shortly. He says inside the statement of his, Al-Imam al-Taftazani rahmatullah alayhi, those who say that every bid'ah is dalalah are going and holding on to this hadith, and they hold on to it, and they apply it flatly across everything that is invented which is new. And we will discuss the true meaning of this hadith in accordance to the Aqwaal of the A'immah, the leaders of this religion. He said, وَلَا يَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّ الْمُرَادَ بِذَلِكَ هُوَ أَن يُجْعَلَ فِي الدِّينِ مَا لَيْسَ مِنْهُ. And they did not understand the meaning of this hadith. That the meaning is, the intention of this hadith is to introduce something into the religion which has nothing to do with the religion, meaning, going back to the statement of Al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi, something which goes against the Qur'an, the Sunnah, the Ijma' of the statements of the Sahaba. So, we have here a clear definition again that there are groups of people that existed even at the time of Al-Imam al-Taftazani rahmatullah alayhi, maybe in the 7th Hijri century. At his time there were people who were saying every bid'ah is dalalah, every bid'ah is dalalah. And he said they didn't understand. What of our time? When we have people who have not learnt the basics of the Arabic language, not learnt the basics of the Qur'an and the Sunnah, people claiming that there are hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari that are not authentic, and yet they have not read the first or second book within the science of the principles of hadith. if we go to the next slide, inshallah, we have here now that some of the successors to the early generation, they even split the concept of bid'ah into more than two types. We find that Sayyidina al-Imam al-Nawawi rahmatullah alayhi, one of the great scholars of hadith and fiqh in this religion, he said in his book Tahdhib al-Asma' wal-Lughat, he said, "Al-bid'atu bi kasri al-ba'i fi ash-shar'i hiya ihdathu ma lam yakun fi ahdi Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam." He says al-bid'ah, and he talks about how it's written in the Arabic with the kasra on the letter ba, is the innovating of that which did not exist in the time of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Okay? And he says, وَهِيَ مُنْقَسِمَةٌ إِلَى حَسَنَةٍ وَقَبِيحَةٍ. And it is divided into good, hasana, and qabiha, reprehensible. This is his view. That is divided into two, like the narrations we have already mentioned from the other ai'. He says then, قال الشيخ الإمام المجمع على إمامته وجلالته وتمكنه في أنواع العلوم وبراءته أبو محمد عبد العزيز بن عبد السلام رحمه الله تبارك وتعالى ورضي الله تعالى عنه في آخر كتاب القواعد. He says the Shaykh, the Imam whose leadership, lofty stature and mastery and brilliance in all kinds of Islamic sciences, there is consensus. Abu Muhammad Abdul Aziz bin Abdul Salam, may Allah have mercy on him, be well pleased with him. He said at the end of his book Al-Qawaid, what did he say? Al-bid'atu munqasimatun ila wajibatin wa muharramatin wa mandubatin wa makruhatin wa mubahatin. That bid'ah is divided into what? Into that which is obligatory, that which is forbidden, that which is recommended, that which is disliked, and that which is permissible. So he believed that all of these principles which we have laid down in the furu', or we call the branches of fiqh, the actions fall into fard, the wajib, and so forth. He believed also that bid'ah could be classified into those categories.